empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. We are back again today, my friends. We have some wonderful content today. We are going to take a trip back to 2005 to revisit the Texas game for a little bit. And we're going to discuss a nugget with Nevada Buck. He had a great nugget about what he was starring in winter conditioning. It's a very tough time in the Woody Hayes right now for the players, but it's one of those things where they need to be put through the paces to be up to strength for the beginning of spring ball, get their conditioning right. So it's miserable, but it's necessary. So I always used to enjoy this because some kids thrive in this condition and some people absolutely will. So with that, I'm going to bring in Nevada. Nevada, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Kirk. I'm doing better than the guys at the Woody because they're getting grinded on right now pretty hard by Coach Mick.
Yeah, and I've discussed this at length, but when you have a new coach to because a lot of these guys, everyone in the secondary, linebackers, I mean, even the D line to a degree, because even if Flair Johnson was the only guy retained, you still have to kind of show out for Jim Knowles because he's the DC, he's the big boss, and obviously the offensive line guys with Justin Fry, with Stud being replaced, you have a whole group of new coaches that you need to impress. And talk a little bit about what you've heard and who is impressing so far.
Well, I think the important thing is, like, I think people hear or want to. I've heard the comments. Oh yeah, every year we hear this camp is tougher than the other one, or this is tough, or this is not tough, or whatever. And I think we've been pretty consistent in terms of kind of giving the real deal in terms of what things are going on. And I think one of the criticisms of Day um, early on in his coaching career was that he was a little, I won't say soft, but he was a little nicer. He was a little nicer than Meyer. He was a little bit more about a comfortable environment. Meyer always wanted people to be uncomfortable, and Day wanted people to be comfortable. And I think what you're seeing during this offseason is a whole new Ryan Day. You've seen it with his staff moves were I won't say they were brutal, but they were direct. He identified some issues. He wants to be surrounded with his guys, and he went out and made wholesale changes on the defensive side, made some selective changes on the offensive line, got his guys in there, got his allies in there. And I think what we're seeing here in the strength and conditioning side is they were a little easy on the kids last year, and I Coach Mick wanted to push it up a little bit, and I think Coach Dave resisted that, wanted Coach Mick to back off, and Coach Mick did back off, and I think they're not doing that anymore. And I think what you're seeing in this winter camp is a really, really, really tough winter camp that's designed to promote toughness and just kind of stress the guys and see who's going to step up. But this one's different. And people can say what they want, but this is a different camp. And if you ask the guys, they'll be the first ones to tell you how different it is.
Yeah, and that's something that after the Michigan game, where if you give up 300 on the ground, everyone's going to call you soft. Something had to change, and I go back to the days with Coach Meyer in 2012 when we had some guys go into his office before week one. Or get ready to play the Miami Redhawks. They go into his office, say that their legs are a little sore. Maybe can we, stop squatting this week? Maybe can you cut practice back? And like that, literally at that time, that was probably the dumbest thing you could ever say to Urban Meyer at the time. And he treated him like that. He turned it up even harder. It's like these guys, because he maybe in the past they could say, hey, my legs are sore, my hamstrings, whatever, and that would have gotten them out of some stuff. But with Coach Meyer, it was actually the opposite. He's going to crank it up even worse, and and you guys are just going to deal with it and harden up and toughen up. And the human body's a funny thing because a lot of people, you can do things that you'd never imagine as long as you don't let your mind limit it. And that's kind of where they're at right now with winter conditioning, with Coach Mick, with mat drills, with agilities, and a lot of the competitive stuff. So specifically, which players have you heard have been standing out, and how does that bode for spring football?
Well, I think we're going to have some interesting battles, across the board on both sides of the ball. But some of the stuff that I'm looking at is the offensive line, because the offensive line's been kind of a bone of contention. I'm of the opinion that they were pretty darn good last year, and you lost a lot of talent in terms of Thayer and Nick two, I guess first team All-American, two guys that are going to go high in the draft, and it's going to be very, very difficult to replace guys like that. So I'm looking to see who's going to step up on the offensive line. And one of the names that I keep hearing is Matt Jones. I mean, Matt Jones is a guy that I think is really having a big winter workout, and he's always been kind of an enigma. He's always been a guy that's been supremely talented, but I'm not sure the Ohio State coaches really trusted him to do the right thing. He'd be a guy that would occasionally show up late to a practice, or not to a practice, but to a workout, or do some things that kind of left the coaches scratching their head. But I think he's got his head on right, and it's really showing in this work. I think he's going to be a big part of the offensive line next year, and one of the reasons why the Ohio State offense is going to continue to roll along is a great offensive line, and I think he's going to be a critical piece of it.
Yeah, Matt is a kid that, he probably looks around that room right now and he's the old guy. He looks around and, you got PJ in there and you got Luke Whippler, who's a second-year guy, and he looks around and now he's the old guy. And, he's not a vocal guy. He's not a vocal leader, but, his intensity is ratcheted up. I think now that, there is nobody in his way to block him from that left guard spot other than himself. I think he's a little more focusing because, sometimes these guys, man, when it comes to be NFL time, contract time, potentially, work your way into the draft with a big year time, these guys kind of focus. Well, they do focus harder and they work harder and they don't let the stupid young immaturity things happen anymore, because you could do so much great stuff, but then you miss, you're late to a workout or you do something off the field that gets you into the boiling water, so to speak. And it's hard because it's like all your hard work is kind of reset back to zero. So, he's stringing good days together, which is exciting. Some guys, there's some major opportunities, man, on both sides of the ball. And I'm excited to see, who else steps up. Do you have any names on defense that you've heard?
Yeah, well, on defense, a guy who's kind of a forgotten name because he was injured last year, and really a big part of the defense, and one of the reasons why the defense has struggled was Josh Proctor, and it's been a guy that I was really pleased to hear he was injured, suffered a pretty bad injury, and has really looked good in the winter workouts, and the Ohio State defense needs some nasty, and they needs that guy that's going to come, that big safety that's going to come out of the defensive backfield and deliver the big hit, and that Knowles loves that kind of stuff. And Proctor's a guy that I'm hearing is really having a real positive winter workout. It'll be interesting to see how ready he is come spring ball. And but all the guys are kind of amazed. When you talk to the players, they're like, yeah, he's looking really good. He's looking pretty jacked up and running around out there without limitation. So Josh Proctor's a guy that I'm looking to make a big impact on the Knowles defense this year.
Yeah, I'm excited about him. The fact that we got word that he was actually doing some stuff, and again, anytime a guy has a catastrophic injury, you never know how quickly he'll recover. But he's coming, and he's got the respect of a lot of the older guys on the defense. I think that the fact that he's pushing it and he's working hard to get into the winter workouts, because when you have a catastrophic injury, I mean, there's some guys that'll want to sit out the 6 a.m.s and maybe I should take it easy. And then he's like the opposite. He's like, I want to push it and push it and push it and, see how far I can go and how much I can harden up and strengthen it up. So that was really one of the things where I was excited to hear that, because he's a great kid and, we need all the help we can get in the back end. We're thin at a lot of positions, safety, linebacker particularly. And, it's going to be exciting. This is going to be a different spring because there's a lot of spots up for grabs. I mean, really on defense, every spot's up for grabs with a new DC. I mean, obviously, there's some guys that'll probably, you could rate in Penn are going to start, like the Zach Harrisons, the older guys, but there's a lot of spots, man, that can be won. And I'm excited to see, what Jim Knowles does as a linebackers coach with his Oklahoma State quality control staff, kind of coaching that linebacker room. With hopefully Cody Simon is finally healthy. He was beat to crap and a lot of guys wouldn't have played last year, but he did, and he didn't put good film out. And then you've got Steele and Tommy Eichenberg. I mean, you've got the kid from Arizona State, Chip. You've got some talent there, but I think that the coaching, the scheme recognition, it's going to be real exciting, because the thing about when there's a new scheme and a new coach is that it's kind of like studying for a test. Who can learn the defense the fastest, who can get it to the point where it's second nature and they can react, they can, make checks, you get people lined up. that's like one of those things where you can't study enough film, you can't study the defense enough, because you really have to get to the point where it's all reaction. Like you're not thinking about, okay, they're in a formation with a tight end and a back, and then all of a sudden they break to empty, and the whole, and now it's five wide, and it's like, how do we check that? Who goes where? Like, how do I get lined up? Do we change the coverage? Like, there's all these little things that are nuances inside of a defensive playbook, and a lot of people don't realize that. But the quicker you can get to just reacting it and knowing it like the back of your hand, the better a player you're going to be. So, talk a little bit about. We're going to transition to maybe I played in a couple national championship games, a couple of Michigan games, but the national championship game is obviously the biggest game you'll ever play, and but the window for hype for that is a month, 49 days, whatever it is. The '05 Texas game had like a 2-year run up of hype, and tell me a little bit about what were you doing in '05? I mean, I'm not even sure if were you on the boards, were you and a little bit about the run up to that '05 Texas game.
Yeah, no, I'd been on the boards for a couple of years at that point in time, and that was
Mm-hmm.
in the infancy of the internet and message boarding. But no, people were excited. People were excited to see the Texas team. People were excited to see Vince Young, um, because I think as we sit down and reflect, probably the single greatest offensive force in college football history when you think about it.
Yeah.
He went out and by himself beat that USC team, which could have been in the discussion for greatest team of all time, and came into Ohio Stadium with a lot of hype. And the Ohio State defense came to play that night. Man, boy, they delivered one of the virtuoso performances of in the stadium's long history. But unfortunately, it came up a little bit short because we just kicked too many field goals. But it certainly wasn't on the defense's back that night. That was an unbelievable night, and I think we're going to show some clips that finished with a moment. People talk about the loudest moments in the stadium history, and this one's got my vote for loudest moment. This is right up there with Gamble's interception against Penn State and some of the great moments from the '06 Michigan game. This one gets my vote for loudest moment in stadium history, because it was deafening to be there, and it was something you'll never forget.
I mean, honestly, in the games I've been to, like the '09 USC game, I played in a lot of games. I was at most of the '02 games because I was getting recruited as a senior. I mean, I think this was it for me. I mean, if you talk about the loudest game, so we're gonna get right into the film. This was obviously one of the most heartbreaking losses that I've been a part of. This was a toughie, but let's dive into it. So we're gonna run a little sequence here that leads up to AJ Hawk's interception, which was the loudest moment I've ever experienced. So, right here we pick it up. It's 3rd and 8, and run the tape. So, I mean, this defense was, for my money, as good of a defense as we've had at Ohio State, at least, as long as I've been able to study it and focus. I mean, you got the normal suspects. You got Schlegs and Bobby, and, you see we're bringing this blitz that was a real popular blitz back in the day. It's called a shark blitz, where you bring Bobby Carpenter off the edge, you bring Dante Whitner off the edge, and our guys get home. I mean, we had a ferocious front. We had David Patterson, Quinn Pickhock. You see Mike Kudla, God rest his soul, is dropping right here. But this was a fantastic defense. I mean, this was an athletic defense. We had guys that could run, we had guys that could hit. This was just about as good as we've had. I believe that's Joel Penton playing nose. All right, to go through this, this is Jay Richardson. This is Bobby Carpenter. I believe that's Joel Penton. That looks like a 98. This is Quinn Pitcock. This is Mike Kudla. Here's AJ Hawk, Nate Sally. And Texas had, an outstanding team. I mean, Blaylock, the right tackle, played in the NFL forever. Vince Young. This is not Jamal Charles. He was 25, but I think that might be Selvin Young. But Charles was in here a little bit earlier. He was ridiculous. So this blitz it was funny because Purdue used to run this against us like 30 times a game, the Purdue Boilermakers. Um, it's just a shark blitz, so it's a zone blitz. You run, field cover 3 behind it, so he'll go back. He takes a step and drops, and then everybody else just loops out one, loops out, loops out. Then he cuts down in here, and then you've got Dante coming free off the edge. So this is a big field pressure that we used to run. Obviously, it's excellent when you have a guy like Dante Whitner who runs a 4-3. You see Schlegels creeping out to drop into his zones. You see AJ drops into his zones. Our guys big stick down, and then you've got Dante coming off the edge. In reality, the tight end should pick him up, but it's hard when he's that wide and he's that fast. And Dante, this is why Dante was great. Now I know this kid doesn't have his feet, but look at the blow Dante Whitner delivers right here. And Dante might have been the best safety to ever play at Ohio State. I'm just being honest. Like, I played with him, and he was in my class, and he was a monster. So he just crushes this tight end, and we get penetration here from Joel Penton. Kind of gets mucked up. Vince is kind of panicking, and Dante gets a hold of him. And when I'm sitting in the stadium, I'm sitting there. You're there in Nevada. What was it like when you're watching this and you see like this moment right here when Vince Young is in the grass, the ball is like a loaf of bread? What are you thinking right here? I mean, I'm sitting there saying, please get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out. What are you thinking?
Yeah. Well, I'm just hoping he can hold on because you see it in real time, and Vince Young looks like he's a head taller than Dante. He's like the big kid against the little kid, and Dante's kind of hanging on for dear life on that big load there, Vince Young, and that, I mean, that particular play, again, as loud as that play was loud, and then it get louder when AJ makes the interception. But that was an incredible play on that 3rd and 8, huge situation right there, down 10-3, and you needed to stop, and you come with the sack, and one of the unsung heroes in that play is the guy that for me, pound for pound, is one of the best football players I've ever seen in Ohio State, and Quinn Pitcock. He was a guy that battled some addictions. People laughed about video game addiction and things like that, but it kind of took him out of football. But as a college football player, that he had few peers. I mean, he was as good as anybody that's ever played, in my opinion, at that defensive tackle position.
Yeah, he was among, like, if we made like an all underrated Ohio State team, Quinn would definitely be on it. And he was an All-American, his first team All-American. An interesting story about Quinn is when I was a rookie in the NFL, my first game, we were getting ready to play the Colts. I was with the Bears. And Olin Kreutz, who should be in the Hall of Fame, probably get in the Hall of Fame in the next few years. Olin legitimately asked me what happened to Quinn Pitcock. Like, Quinn was a year older than me, so he was a rookie in 07. I was a rookie in 08. And Quinn, had like left training camp or didn't show up to training camp, or I forget what the circumstance was, but he's a year into the NFL. He was a 3rd round pick, and he just quit. And I was like, I have no idea what in the world's going on with him, because he'd signed for his signing bonus probably $500,000-600,000, whatever. And he if you quit, you got to give it back. You got to give back like a prorated amount, which for if you're on a 4-year deal, it's going to be like 75% of the money. You got to give it back. And I mean, with Quinn, I don't know what he was thinking. I mean, obviously, he had some serious addiction issues, but Olin was like, he's really good. And I mean, he would have been a $40 million defensive tackle, if he wouldn't have, had that issue. And then, he quit, and then he kind of came back, and he wasn't his same self. And he played Arena League. He was with a couple teams in the offseason, like the Detroit Lions. But it was, it was crazy. Cause I was like, Quinn is as good of a D tackle. He was just miserable to go against. I mean, I don't say many guys are miserable to go against, but he was absolutely miserable to go against. And, it was, he was disruptive, and he was a great player. So yeah, you see him, we get him down. So you get it to, what's our down and distance here? Oh, of course, it's 1st and 10. So this is their next drive. So, force a punt there. This is their next drive. Again, we were cheating up a lot. We were messing with where we were coming from. We ran this blitz. This was called an Alaska blitz, which is a cross dog. It's just a two-man deal where, this is, I think that's Bobby playing Sam. And you look at our defense and the effort these guys played with. I mean, look at how many people are around the ball carrier at the end of the play. I mean, you see guys getting up, hustling, and that was like a trademark of the Silver Bullets, is how hard these guys would play. So Yeah, I believe that's AJ walking up for the Alaska. So this is just a cross dog. It's a basic, he's going to go from the B to the A. Let me get my pen warmed up here. He's going to go B to A. AJ is walking down. He breaks the heels. So a lot of times as an offensive lineman, when a linebacker breaks the heels, we treat him as a D lineman. So it's like right here we treat AJ he'd be like a defensive end. So we would have to account for him as an O line. But AJ walks up, and his job is to eat up Scott, who's the left tackle, Jonathan Scott. So AJ comes here, and then Schlegel is going to fill in the hole, hoping that there's nobody home. So he eats up the guard, and then you see Bobby comes across for Blaylock. This is a hard play to defend. I mean, they ran this counter, and this isn't something that most teams do, but I mean, these guys ran it because they had Vince, and again, with a running quarterback, it's like having a fullback. If you make Jamal Charles kind of your fullback, and then you make Vince your running back. I mean, this is why running the quarterback is a pain, because like literally we're outnumbered here. Like, I mean, we play it pretty well, but they have a blocker for everybody, and and we have a free runner. So it's this was a devastating play. They used to love running this counter. Oklahoma runs this. They ran this a lot with Kyler Murray. This is something that Jim Knowles was actually great at defending when he was at Oklahoma, or when he was, at Oklahoma State, because he knew Oklahoma ran this a lot, and his Leo actually is really tough on this, because his Leo would normally flow over the top and cut the lead puller. He teaches his Leos to cut the lead puller to kind of create this big pile. So like right here, instead of trying to take this guy up high, which you're going to lose because he's 320 pounds and you're 250, 245, you're going to get, what Jim Knowles, did at Oklahoma State. I don't know if he'll do that at Ohio State. He would literally have his Leo cut this guy. So he'd make this big pile right here. And that pile usually eats up the backside tackle. So instead of having this clean lane where, if you take the initial pull guard on up high, you're going to get crushed. You're going to get pushed back. You're not as big. And then, the right tackle has free reign to get up to the backside linebacker.
Now doing that, that's a rule change in the NFL right now, because they're calling guys all the time for going low on offensive linemen out there on sweeps and things like that. How recent of a rule change is that?
That's a great question, because I didn't even think of that. Because I mean, I've been studying Jim, and he did that as recently as 2 years ago. So that might be a rule change. I think that's one of those ones where, they could subjectively call it, I mean, because like how do you know if it's a true cut versus the guy slips versus whatever? And sometimes guys just miss it. They flat miss it. And I think it should be a penalty when these defensive guys cut. I loved cut blocking just because I liked going after guys, because nobody likes to get hit in the knee with a helmet. And that's kind of what you get to do when you cut a guy. And it makes guys not really want to rush as hard when you do it to them a few times. But I don't think there should be any cut blocking allowed in football. But that being said, it's the classic deal with defenders when you say, okay, well, you can't hit high, because they want to take the head out of the game. They don't want kids to get concussed. But then you can't hit low, where you see a guys like Dustin Keller, who played at Purdue and was with the Jets and the Dolphins. I mean, his knee got absolutely destroyed because a guy had to go low on him, and he went helmet to knee, literally tore everything. And I honestly don't think he ever played again. And he was a Pro Bowl type tight end, freak of nature. And it's tough being a defensive man, because that's like one of those things where you don't know what you can do anymore. Back in, honestly, like, I don't want to say back in my day, but like in 05, like there was no targeting, there was no no hits low, no hits high. It was just go hit the guy. So you could actually truly play and react. Where now it's like, well, I can't hit the guy high, I can't hit the guy low. But no, this plane's an absolute pain, and they get good yardage on it with Vince, and he was a machine, man. He was a wrecking crew. So we'll I think we're here. I think this is it. So we got some heat coming off the edge. That's Nate this time. They got Nate as in the box. Okay, they muffed he muffed the snap here. Looks like they're starting to do a zone read option. He gets it. He's lucky he got it, because Nate's about an inch away from him. So they call him down here. We got David Patterson and Marcus Green in a defensive tackle. Again, we had really good depth on this team. We got Jay Richardson. So we have 2 fresh D tackles in. Quinn Pickcock's in, and I think the defensive interior rotation is huge on a good defense because we legit had 4 D tackles that could play. So here's Vince recovers it, but I mean, again, our guys are getting to the ball. It's a miracle that he didn't. That Nate didn't get this, but it's pretty close. And Vince tries to get back up, even though he was down in college. That's the rule, and David Patterson kind of gives him a little shot. So, but we have I believe this is it because this is about the field position. Let's see if AJ drops. So Dante's coming here again. He's a little late getting down there, and he kind of gives it up just because he's, the tight end's there. He's hoping that he could get around the tight end, and he was too slick to try to take a tight end on down the middle because he'd get grasped up. So he's got to slow it down. Let's see. It's so fun. I mean, sometimes like when you're watching this, you just look at the crowd and you can say, "Oh God, this is it." And I mean, you look at the sideline, you look at the crowd, you look at kind of just the whole periphery of the play, and you can see how big of a play it was. So you got obviously Vince gets heated up. There's pressure. There's immense pressure, and you got AJ dropping. He's in the zone. Here Vince is getting wrapped up again. We pressured him all night. I mean, our guys really played hard. Great technique. Our guys rallied to the ball. I mean, look, you got 3 guys hanging on Vince, and he's like literally like tackling the Statue of Liberty is so big. And our guys get him. He makes a huge mistake and just throws a lollipop up in the air right to AJ. AJ was almost like a magnet to the ball. I felt like during his career, he was a guy that would make a ton of plays and just happened to be Johnny on the spot right here. Because I mean, there's really nobody around him. I mean, I don't know who he's trying to get it to, but he's just trying to throw it away, and it goes right to AJ, right in the stomach. And AJ was fast. I mean, he was a 4.4 guy, so we're thinking he's he could get this. Now Texas has fast guys too, obviously, so they were able to get him down. But this is one of the it's hard for me to watch this because I know that we kicked a field goal after this, I believe, and we kicked 5 field goals against the team that won the national championship, and we lost by 2 points. So we just weren't. We didn't produce the way we needed to produce, and our defense played the game of their lives. And that's something that it always stinks when you're all one team, but when you have an offense and a defense, and one side plays terrible and the other side plays great, and you lose, it's hard. It's hard not to blame people, but it's kind of natural too. And when you're on the side that doesn't get the job done, it sucks. So yeah, you see the pressure. You see Dante coming off the edge. You see, and honestly, like, we talk about Quinn, but Mike Kudla was an absolute, he was miserable to go against. He was just like, I mean, him and Quinn might be the first 2 guys I'd pick on the all underrated team. And, it's there's Couds, he's rapping. I believe that's Bobby too. Is that Bobby? Yeah, Bobby gets there. So this was our nickel deal. We'd put Bobby and Kudla at end. So, you could tell Kudla because he's a little more sawed off and less fluid than Bobby. There's Kuds. There's Bobby. So, Bobby obviously is a freak of nature, fast, really good player. So you got AJ and Schleg's dropping out. But, I mean, you just look at the pursuit. I mean, you run a little twist to the right. And guys don't initially get there, but I feel like Bobby, he gets enough of an impact on Jonathan Scott that it spooks Vince Young and makes him give up his point that he's taken his initial drop from him, and he scrambles. And when he scrambles, he makes mistakes, and right here again, he's second time he's holding the ball like a loaf of bread, and our guys are pursuing, and Kudla again, like the thing that really is impressive is when you watch the effort, and like watch Mike Kudla, like he's initially eaten up, runs a TE. He's kind of in a big muck right here where, it doesn't look like there's any daylight because you've got this massive humanity. And then he gets there and he gets home and you see these guys, look at how they pursue, look how hard they're playing, and 3 guys hit him at once because nobody gives up and guys are running. You see David Patterson, you see Jay Richardson, like you've got some serious effort here. And that's, it's impressive. And then, you see the lollipop and what was this? Like, again, I like asking from someone that was actually sitting, watching the game in the stadium. What was it like when you saw this moment, Nevada?
Well, it was crazy. I mean, it was like, we talked about the loudest moments in the stadium. I mean, for me, for my money, that was the loudest moment in the stadium. And like you, I thought for a moment there that he was going to house it because, he kind of broke across the field and all of a sudden it looked like he had a little mini convoy in front of him. And as it turned out, like you said, we ended up kicking a field goal, which was disappointing. Um, but it is, it's one of those moments you never forget. When those guys were hanging all over Young, and Young tosses up, and AJ darn near took it to the house. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of those moments where you're like, you can see your boy right there. There's me actually run up and, oh God, it's time to go. So it was me. I was sitting on the bench with the homeboys, and I always, it's weird. I always had this superstition where I would sit on the bench until it was fourth down. Like I would never stand, and I would never, because I remember there was one time it was like 3rd and 18, and I stood up, to get ready to go down to the end, where they punted from, and they converted, and I was like, I'm never doing that again. So I literally would not stand up till it was fourth down and they were punting, because I don't know what it was, but it was like, I was like the one time I did it, they converted. I don't know if we got a PI, but it was some huge number, like 18 or 20 or something, where it's like, we should be punting unless we get like an automatic first down type penalty. And we did. So I never stood up again. But, when you see AJ running the other way, then you're like, all of a sudden you go from drinking Gatorade to saying, oh God, I'm in the game. So it's like, we got to come over here and get huddled up and get ready to roll. So, but yeah, this was a special moment. And there's, you see the guys are excited. Bobby's hype. I mean, it's just, AJ was such a fantastic player. It's probably one of my two favorite players ever on defense between him and Will Smith. And what a great guy. And that's the hardest part about these games, man, is you let down some guys that were great players and great leaders and guys that really showed you the way. And he's only a year older than me, but he always set the tone in practice and in the weight room and everything. So special dude. But I appreciate this, my man. A little bit of a walk down memory lane. We've got a lot more of this to come. I think that we might be doing the Ryan Hamby drop tomorrow, so that'll be an interesting one, man. 'Cause that's a little less euphoric than this was, but I'm looking forward to it. So, in parting, you got any parting words for this, Nevada, as we leave the '05 Texas game, loudest
No,
moment in
just
history?
it was a great game. It was a fun game to be at, and looking forward to the 2022 schedule. We got 8 home games. I'm going to have some more great memories, but it's kind of fun watching this game, and that's what's fun about Ohio State football's. Win or lose, it's create lifelong memories, and this was certainly one of them for me.
Yeah, and the spring ball opens in like 2.5 weeks. So, I mean, it's almost like it's here. So you blink and 2 weeks will go by and it'll be good time. So I'm excited about that. So appreciate you, all you people on BuckeyeScoop.com. About to go get on the boards right now and see what's going on. So I hope you guys are good. You guys have a great night, and I will talk to you soon.